Look at that. I actually remembered to unmute myself, so that's pretty cool. Good evening. It must be Monday night, and it must be 8 o'clock because we're Chewin the Fat. Well, hey, what can we talk about? We can talk about lots of things, but I'm going to leave it up to you people out there to ask as many questions as you can. We've got Bill on, the Alloycraft Ambassador, and we're going to talk to Bill about how his season's gone, although COVID interrupted, and what he's learnt and all that sort of stuff. So we'll get Bill on in a minute. We've got plenty of people logging in, which is all cool. G'day, Mark. G'day, James. G'day, Elion, Harvey, Nevin, Fred. Postcodes, don't forget. All right. G'day, Bo. Yes, had a haircut, a bit of a trim. Got bored and just kept getting thinner. So postcode prize tonight is a golf pack. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different packets of golfs. So all you have to do to win the golf prize tonight is actually put your postcode in, and Harry will sit in there and draw out a winner later on in the show. So that's as hard as that gets. We've got plenty on. Yeah, so Harry's wheel later on, postcodes, whack them in. When I get Bill on, ask as many questions as you want because we're going to sort of leave it up to you to guide the show on how it goes. I hope everyone's sane. I know we're all doing it tough. We've been locked down now again in regional Victoria, so we can't get out and about. It's a bit confusing with the rules down here. So for everyone in Albury, they can fish anywhere within their LGA. It doesn't matter about the distance from home. But if you're on the Wodonga side, you've only got 5 kilometres. So that pretty much for all of Wodonga rules out going out to Hume, which is a bit tough. So, but we're still, only a couple more days into lockdown where the poor bastards in Melbourne and Sydney have been locked down for weeks. So I feel sorry for everyone that is in lockdown. There's not much we can do about it apart from probably just go out and get the jab and get ready. But I don't want to be too political on that one. I just want to get Bill on. We'll ask questions. We'll chew the fat, and we'll see how we go. So before we do, just remember that the Junior Ambassador program is still running. So that P-Series boat is up for grabs. Somebody, we do have a couple of entries, which I'll start playing over the next few weeks until we get to the final and select ourselves a winner to take that boat home for 2 years under a mentor program with myself. So, well, not just myself, the whole Bluefin fishing team. So looking forward to finding out a few more entries in that one. So if you want to enter that, it is the Alloycraft Brand Ambassadors group on Facebook. Just search Alloycraft Brand Ambassador and it will come up on Facebook. Join the group. It's a closed group. We've left it that way, and see how the entries are all going. So let's get the man on and we'll start having a chat. G'day, Bill.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you going?
Not bad. Looking forward to getting out of this lockdown if it ever happens.
Yeah, so tell us, for everyone that's out there, we have viewing Australia-wide, obviously. The people log on from everywhere and watch the show. Whereabouts are you based?
We're in northern New South Wales, so I'm up in Lismore.
So you've been locked down, for a couple of weeks now? How long have you been in lockdown?
Yeah, so it's been 2 weeks now.
Yep. Yeah,
I mean, it's not long compared to some, but it's just sort of that, that little bit too long when you got the kids at home, homeschool and working from home, all of it. You just get a little bit, house ridden, want to get out.
Yep, of course. I think that's the pain, and I feel the pain for everyone that, it's. I'm not comparing it to jail or anything like that. Maybe a weekend day camp where you've got to go and do community service over and over and over again. It's a bit like Groundhog Day. People just are getting frustrated with it all. But I suppose you're lucky enough that you are in New South Wales, so you do get to fish within your LGA, not the distance from home. Have you been able to get out and have a bit of a fish?
Yeah, I've been trying to get in as much as I can, really, because all the other sport has stopped for the kids. So it gives me an opportunity to drag them out of the house, chuck them on the boat and get on the water. and it just makes a huge difference to the day because they're actually out there and, they end up getting all that energy out. They're not stuck indoors. And, yeah, it's been good being able to do that and just trying to work the river out a bit more up here as well. If the grand final does go ahead, then I've got a bit of time on the water before it all starts.
Yeah, of course. So we had Bo on last week, similar area or probably the same area as you are, but you sort of joined the program last year as a bit of a river rat, or that's where you're based around those river systems, and weren't that confident in the dams, and you took the leap of faith. You were going to co-boat, and once you won the boat, it was step up or shut up, and you stepped up, and apart from being COVID, you've had a pretty stellar run, haven't you?
Yeah, at the start of the year, I sort of set myself a few goals of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get out of it. First and foremost was to learn. I think you said it on the show last week. There's no time that even as a boater or a non-boater that you don't learn off the other person in your boat. So I've made a big point of learning as I go and really paying attention to those small details of all the guys that do it so well, again, in the non and the boater side. So I've been paying attention there. But I gave myself a goal of top 10 for AOY for the year. So that's what I've been striving towards and just trying to be really consistent. And I know it's my first year. And it's tough because you get guys on the boat and they go, okay, what are we going to do? And you're sitting there going, well, I've been here since yesterday and that's the first time I've ever fished this place. So that's also a blessing from time to time because you don't come in with a huge expectation of, I was here last time, we smashed them on this, that's what's going to work this time. You go in a little bit more open-minded because you don't have that expectation and you're going out and going, look, I'm just going to throw what I like to throw. And I'm going to just work out a pattern that works for me and just go out and have fun at the end of the day.
So at the start of the year, you set yourself the goal, you set a top 10. Now, that's a pretty hefty goal to set. I mean, I know I was involved in some of your goal settings, and I thought to myself, geez, he's sort of setting himself up for a bit of disappointment here. Top 10. I mean, it is very hard to make a top 10. And, currently I think you're sitting in 9th place. So yep. Very consistent year. It'll depend on what happens with ABT Grand Final, whether they're going to award points or not points or whatnot. But you'd have to, taking that into consideration, you've had to learn pond fishing, basically. Am I right at saying that this has all been fairly new to you?
Yeah, because my first year of ABT was last year, again in a COVID-affected series, really, that we had. So, we hit Glenbourne this year, Cania, and of those two dams, I'd never fished either of them before. So that was brand new to me. The Clarence was the only one that I'd fished before out of the rounds that we got to do. So it was two brand new waterways that I was fishing for the first time. And just set myself the goal to go out there and be consistent, find some fish and just bring back, if I could, a full bag each day and just work from there.
And that kind of worked successfully for you. I mean, you've learnt a lot over the journey with the whole fishing stuff. I mean, you've never boated. You told me at the start of the year that, you didn't know what a left-handed screwdriver was. So it was going to be reasonably hard for the boat side of things. You'd never really got into or owned a boat for long periods of time. And had you actually owned a boat before this one?
Never.
So this has all been a whole new experience. So throw in owning your first boat or the use of the boat, you've got the whole year in front of you and you've had to master everything. How have you got your head around that? How have you stayed stable in that, headspace?
My family, a big part of it for sure. And also my fishing community that I've got here locally. I tend to talk a lot with the guys that are around here. We also travel together as well. And you guys as well, like talking to you and the other guys that we've got on scene at the tournaments. Everybody goes there to win, but like you're on the water, it's business. But as soon as you get off the water, it's just like a bunch of mates hanging out. So that also helps you relax into the tournaments because you realize, yeah, there's money on the line. There's pride because we've all got pride in what we do and we want to do it well. But at the end of the day, we're all like-minded fishermen that want to go out and go fishing and have fun. And that has really helped me take a step back and go, yeah, it's serious, but there's this whole other side to it as well that really just helps relax people into it. And you'll talk to a lot of guys that go to their first comp and you guarantee 95% of them will go, I'm going to do this for a long time.
Yep, for sure. So let's break your year down. As you said, we started at Glenbourne. You had a cracking weekend at Glenbourne. What was because the reason there's sort of a double-edged sword with this one. What did you actually catch them on at Glenbourne?
I caught them on Bassmans and TNs.
So you were throwing TN 60s and the Bassman, were they jigs or chatterbait, mumblers? Mumblers.
Yeah.
So it has been, to my knowledge, over 10 years since people have gone consistently, catching fish on TNs and chatterbaits, mumblers, and spinnerbaits and stuff like that at Glenbourne. What made you choose that?
I went and did my pre-fish with Declan, another guy in the top 3 from last year. So we went out and we were just like, what are we going to throw? And Declan's like, I've only ever been here once before. And I said, mate, this is the first time I put a boat on the water here or even seen it. And we went, okay, let's just tie on a bit of everything and go see what works. So we mulled around, we threw some surface in the morning and got a couple of fish. And we were like, okay, that's an option. And we knew from all accounts that there was a surface bite going on whopper ploppers in certain places, and it was going to be a little bit hit and miss with that because a lot of guys would be doing it. And we thought, what can we do that will make it a little bit different and set us apart? So we found a spot where we could gulp a few fish as well. So that was a backup plan that we had. And then we just found this point and everything just seemed right with it. We had the fish coming through consistently. They were working parallel with the rock wall where all these trees were, and then the rock wall went into a point, and the rock wall ran quite steeply down into where another lot of trees were. And we could see him just moving through the whole time. So we just started throwing everything we had at him. And all they wanted to do was hit reaction baits. So I tied on the 2 reaction baits that I feel most confident in. And I was like, I'm throwing these things and I'm going to see what happens. And we started getting hits on the pre-fish day and we're like, okay, that'll work because we can either speed it up, slow it down, work out the depth they wanted at. We'll get them to commit tomorrow, even though we're on separate boats, obviously. But we went in the next day and just executed a plan and it worked.
And it worked. So you didn't go, and I think the reason I sort of wanted to bring that point up is that you didn't go with what everyone else was doing. You actually went out there, you found your own fish, you did your own research, and you come up with your own plan and used the confidence lure. I mean, you know, to be able to use that in your first season, that's a great tool to be able to continue on with. And I think you've got to, you know, if you can keep your head screwed on in that space, you're going to do quite well. We've got a couple of questions. I've got a few more that I'll ask you, but we'll get into them. So there hasn't been many come through, so get your questions in if you want to ask Bill a question. But obviously, Bo, our last week's guest, always on, he said, what's the biggest thing you've learnt this year being the Bluefin Apprentice or the Ambassador?
Pretty much the biggest thing I've learned is like about the community that the fishing industry has and how far it reaches. It's been so good to see how many people have sort of come on board with what's going on out of circles that I never expected them to. One of the coolest things happened to me on Sunday. Pulled the boat off the water and I was there with my mate and a guy was walking down the ramp and he knew my mate. And he goes, "Oh, you can't fish with a pro." And I was like, "Oh, he called me a pro." I was like, "Oh," and he knew who I was just by being at the ramp, and he could see I had the truck as well. That was what I was using to tow on the weekend, it was awesome to see that. Then we just stood around for another 10 or 15 minutes and had a chat, and the community that brings from such left field places. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned is just bringing the community together in the fishing area. It also opens up all these other avenues that we have, and it's been awesome. Like even with Bo, I was supposed to go fishing with him in the last comp, and we'd organised that, and that never would have happened if this program didn't happen. And I love what that's done and bring people together that way.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I'd tell a funny story all the time. You know, Langers and I used to fish a lot. We did the same thing like you're talking about. We used to travel down from Kingaroy to Glenbourne. And, we had exactly the same boat. So I had a Champion 188. He had a Champion 188. Mine was just sort of plain with no sign writing on it. His had the, Matthew Langford shit all over it, and he was driving the Toyota. And we'd pull up in a service station. I was like a second-rate citizen. Everyone had sort of run over the Langers and go, all over him. And I'd be sitting there going, and they'd be, oh, cool boat. And I'm like, what boat? It's right there. Come and have a look. So it's always good when you got the signs on it, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It definitely gets people talking, that's for sure.
All right, let's find another question. Alex wants to know, what is your favourite location to fish?
I think one of my favourite places at the moment, I haven't been able to get out there because of the LGA issues, is a little electric-only dam that we've got here in northern New South Wales, Clary Hall Dam. It's not known for going out and being able to catch a lot of fish, but they're always awesome quality fish. And they did release mangrove jack into this as well, but no one's ever caught one that I've heard of. So there's the added opportunity that you could be fishing for bass and then run into a mangrove jack for some reason. But it's literally in the shadow of Mount Warning. It's the most beautiful dam you've ever seen in your life. And only ever pulled one fish under 40 centimetres out of there, and everything's sort of like big up to 47, that sort of 1.5 to nearly 2 kilo mark fish. So they hit hard and they run hard, but you've got to work hard for them too. And I've really enjoyed that location because it's been so tough to fish. I fished it 6 times before I got a fish.
Yeah.
Just working it out. And that's why it was my favourite part, because I've spent so much time trying to work the pattern out, and now I've got a pattern that works, and now it's evolving that. And that whole learning process for me is just one of the things that really keeps me coming back each time. Like, how else can I do it differently that'll work as well?
No, for sure. And if you don't try different things, you're never going to change. So what is it? If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got.
Yep.
Kev wants to know, where's the mo?
It's gone. It's been gone for a while, actually. It'll come back.
The caterpillar will come back eventually.
Yeah, definitely.
Jake, local down here, wants to know, how much cod fishing have you done previously, and how did you enjoy it compared to the ABT rounds? Obviously we're talking about you come down to my whaler and you fish my whaler, comparing an ABT to a team fishing comp.
As far as the atmosphere went, it was a very similar atmosphere where we went every night into the ski club. Everyone was real chilled out and happy and just having a few beers and hanging out, which was great. So it had that real community feel to it. Fishing for Murray cod is a completely different beast to what I'm used to. I've done it once before that, and they do say it's a fish of 1,000 casts, but that's probably underestimating what it is actually doing. But it's also got that exhilaration that when you finally do get one in the boat, I'm pretty sure everybody on the dam knows where you've caught it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you fish 3 up in the boat. So when you're saying a fish of 1,000 casts, if you've donated on a day and you got 3 in the boat, that's 3,000 casts, isn't it?
Yeah. Safely, except for while Kev's sitting down trying to get bird nests out. That took him out for half the day, but that's all right.
Yeah, but very patient man. He finally got it, plucked them all out. I would have just, chucked it in the water. So
yeah, that's what Declan and I both said the same thing. Like, just cut it off, man. He's like, no, I'll get it. It's fine. All right.
All right. The question, we've got a couple of really good questions coming in through there, so we'll get through them all. But keep them coming in, guys. Nevin wants to know, when you go to a new body of water, do you use your eyes first, structure, weed, trees, and then sound around them to find out what works?
Yeah, I sort of go off a lot of the time the external structure above the water usually is how it works its way down into the water. So if I go, depending on what time of year it is, say it's coming into this warmer time of year, and I know that there's some nice rocky banks that are slightly steep and it might be good for a jig fish, then I'll look for stuff like that with a bit of timber around it too. So you can sort of target things that you know to try and work a place out, because then you can start throwing some confidence baits at the start to see if you can work a little pattern out. And that's how I would go about it. But it's definitely above the water before you start searching underneath. There are dams that people get to know, like Somerset, and you don't really have a lot of places where you go, oh, this structure is right here, because a lot of the time they might be deep out on flats and there's no real structure to go off. So you'd have to look at that differently depending on the dam. But it's places like Cania and also Glenbourne, which we had this year, I was definitely looking at familiar structure that I went, okay, I think I'd be able to pull fish off here with some certain techniques, and then start searching around there. But that's what the pre-fish day is for. Throwing those things, you got every rod in the boat tied up. You got 50 lures cut off by the end of the day that you've tested out. And yeah, you just go have fun, really.
Yeah, so when you're talking about not just the structure in the dam itself, you're looking at the bank that leads up to the water line. So whether it's rocky, rubbly, weedy, flat, muddy, dirty, it's all of the bank as well as what's in the water, or are you just talking about what's in the water?
Oh, so yeah, what's above the water, because a lot of the times you'll fish places and they won't be full as well. So they might have dropped to like 80% from 100, and you'll see the watermarks on the wall, and you can see how the structure would have moved under the water. So essentially you're making an assumption that a similar process will continue underneath that water. And if you're targeting that sort of structure for specific types of fish, like hiding up under rocks, or they're hard up against trees, or like you said with the weed, then you'll know what sort of techniques you'll try to use to get those fish in those areas.
Yep. This is next one, Daryl. This is quite a long question, so I might have to read this out in full. But it is a really, really good question, relevant to the moment with the amount of bass boats that are on Facebook for sale at the moment is just absolutely crazy. So Daryl writes, it interests me that a few comp mad fishers go hard for the first couple of years and then go away from comps. They sell the big fast boat, they go back to a tinny, then they come back to competition. Now, this is the second part of his question is it that they miss the challenge or the notoriety of the competition, or is it the crowd or mob changes? So what are your thoughts on that? Because I've got some relevant points on this one.
I'm not sure. Like, sometimes people may think they want to go fish comps and stuff, so they go by the big flash thing first before maybe giving it a good try, and that'll be a personal thing that they might be able to do. Personally, for myself, at the end of the day, like, yeah, going fast or this sort of stuff, that might help when you got to make big, long 30, 40K runs, but a lot of the time it's not as important as being able to just use what you've got and use it correctly. But yeah, I think a lot of guys realize that it's not about the biggest, fastest boat in the field. It's about the most well-versed fisherman that can go out and be consistent each day.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think money has a big thing to do with it. I mean, everyone goes out there and has a look at what everyone else is doing and goes, oh, I've got to meet with the Joneses, so we'll go out and we've got to buy a big fast boat because that's what I've got to do. We've got to buy the newest and the flashes this and that. People on YouTube are telling me to buy this rod or this reel or this, and I go out and buy it, and that's going to make me a better fisherman. I think you're right that it's not necessarily the gear that makes you a good fisherman. We all know that. But you get caught up in the whole environment of it, and everyone thinks that fishing, is a financially stable sport. Well, it's definitely not, and it's not until you get in and you've done your second or third year and you've worked out. It's as expensive. I reckon it's second to motorsport in cost of you doing full seasons of full series. I worked it out to in the early days for Bass Nation. It was about $35,000 a year without boat repayments to go to all the Bass Nation comps, or it dropped down a little bit because ABT didn't run the teams and stuff like that. It dropped down to about $25,000 out of your own pocket to go to all these events. That's with petrol, travel, accommodation, food, all the stuff that you buy at each comp out the back of everyone's car that's selling everything else, and whatnot. I know, Brady White goes with a car full, and you can't walk away without supporting him. So it costs a lot of money, and with the prize pools, and then you've got entry fees. So you pay your entry fees, and of course, the tournament directors have to take some money out of that to run the comp. So I'm all happy for that to go to them. But then it doesn't leave much left. So unless you're winning, like, you've got to probably finish in the top 5, and there's 50-odd boats there. So you've got to finish in that top percent to get a check just to cover your costs. It's a very expensive sport. And I think, Daryl, it is purely and simply the money side of it that gets everyone in. They think that, being sponsored is all about getting free fishing and free everything else. It just doesn't work that way. Hopefully that answers your question. James wants to know, g'day, Bill, what's the biggest cod you've ever caught?
Whatever one I got in my whaler. I think it was like nearly 60 centimetres.
Yep,
that was about it. Yeah.
There's a lot of people down this way still that have never caught a cod. So don't think that's a bad thing. You've got a couple of good cod waterways up there that you're very close to where you are that nobody really has talked about, I suppose. They know they're there, but nobody gets out there and talks about them.
No, I know where they are. I just haven't ventured that far.
Yep, that's excellent. All right, Barry wants to know, with your TNs, do you prefer the silent or rattles, and how do you determine which one to fish?
Normally in dams, I would fish silents 90% of the time, purely because you don't have all the other distractions that you would have in a tidal river with tide, current, all that other sort of stuff. And I just find they like the more subtle approach with it as well. Whereas I chop and change when I get into the rivers. I'll throw both. And you'll sit there and sometimes they'll just want the rattles. Sometimes they'll just want the silence. And you just got to work it out. But definitely in the ponds, I'm a silent thrower for sure.
Yep, for sure. There was a model years ago, and if anyone's got them, I'd probably look at buying them. I think it was the Ioken, which was a one ball bearing in a jackal, and it made just a single thump. It wasn't a rattle and it wasn't a silent. It was just a clunk. And
yeah, right.
Yeah, they worked very, very well at Boondooma. So if anyone's got them in their box, don't be, they're hard to get, but they are out there. So let's just look at those. When you shake them like you do with a normal, instead of getting the rattle, it's just like a clunk.
Okay.
One big ball bearing in them. All right, let's keep going through. Here's a jig fishing. They must know that you're a bit of a jig gun. So jigs being football jigs, so a skirted jig attached to the line with some sort of trailer on it. Dave wants to know, is it necessarily to use such a long bait caster rod for jig fishing for Australian bass?
I don't think necessary would be the right way to put it. I feel it comes down to user preference. I think a couple of the guys who fish ABT use shorter rods, and that's just purely preference and how they feel they get on to the contact with the jig better. I like a longer rod. I use 7'2" TD zeros for mine, and I always use a really high speed reel as well, because especially when you're fishing, when they're finicky and they're really timid bites, when you hit them, you would almost, if they were in the top 6 foot of the water, you'd probably rip them clean out of the water. You hit them so hard.
Yep.
So the longer rod allows me to move more line in a shorter period of time, plus the high-speed reel, because jig fishing is nothing to do with the reel except catching up that line if you need it. It's all about the movement in the rod and how you're setting that hook by being able to move that line really quick when they do pick it up.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not necessarily for the casting, you're saying. So you're talking about it's for the power of the rod because you're not really throwing, especially in the rivers, you're not really throwing the jigs a long way, are you?
No, it's not big, long, huge casts. I mean, sometimes you do need to move a fair way off the fish, and you might need to make a long cast in the ponds, but that's not too hard when you're throwing something that's half an ounce anyway, because it'll go a long distance. It's all about that line movement. So if you pick up that rod and it's 7'2" and you move it from your hip to your shoulder, you're going to move more line than if you had a 6-foot rod in that same movement. So It just allows me to make contact with that lure quicker, to be able to set that hook, especially when they're just down there like sucking on it and trying to move it around. It just gives me a better purchase on it, and that's a personal preference too.
Yeah, but that's something you got. It's such an addictive bite, and it's such an addictive way to fish.
Yeah.
I hope it never goes out of fashion, because it is really cool to do, but it does take some learning, and that's 100% sure. We better do the postcode prize. We're halfway through. So I've got the gulp pack. As I said, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 packs of gulps. Harry sits inside and picks somebody at random, texts it out to me, and tonight it goes to 3556, and it's Bruce Slimmons. So Bruce, you've won the gulp pack. You need to send me a message on Facebook to Corey's Dam Fishing with your address, and I'll get those posted out to you this week sometime when I'm allowed to go to the post office, I suppose. I'm allowed one trip a week. All right, there's more questions coming in. Daryl, short questions, please. I'm trying to teach Harry homeschool, and I'm reading essays on the show. So let's just go back and see if I've missed any. Here we go. Trent up earlier. I think the boys are in there paying out on your mow, but I'm not 100% sure which is in the feed. What adjustment have you made to your fishing since starting tournaments in your own boat?
The biggest one has been the decision making, because when you get in, if you get in with the guys that have been doing it for a while, they usually got a pretty solid plan that they're going to attack the water on. So making sure I've got a plan in place, not just getting in the boat with someone who's coming in with me and I'll go, well, what are we going to do today? Like to have a plan in place. So that's one thing I've spent a lot of time doing, is making sure that I can go, okay, usually I'd like to have at least 6 or so options of what we can do throughout the day and different periods throughout the day. And then the next thing would be is, even though you've made those plans, things change. Like you might get out on the water, the wind direction changes, the pressure rises or drops, and the weather completely just goes backwards on you, and everything you've planned for goes out the window. So you've also got to be able to be vigilant and go with what your gut feeling is and go out there and do something different, even though you might not have planned for it, but you also need to be able to go, okay, pull the pin on that. That's not working. We've done that for a little bit of time. Don't waste any more time on that. Let's have a look at doing something else.
Yeah, and that comes from paying attention to the environment around it, doesn't it? So, this is where a lot of people get stuck, and we've talked about the live scope type scenario and, getting stuck with their head in the machine and watching. And don't get me wrong, it's great to use. But if you're just paying attention to that and not paying attention to that wind change, that tide change, that little stuff that's going wrong in the background, you can really stuff up your day, can't you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like we were on the river the other day and I was sitting there with my mate and it just slowed up, and I sort of just had a bit of a look around and noticed that any of the debris that was on the surface was sitting dead still. And I was like, oh, the tide's finally caught up with us, so it's dead now. So we then moved up or down to meet the new tide that had started to change, and then fish came back on again once we started finding the areas we were looking for.
Yeah, for sure. So, it's not all about that live scope scenario. You've still got to pay attention, and we've said it all the time. Doesn't matter who it is. They're, whether it's your skiers boys, your langers, and guys that have been using this technology for years, it's not all about the technology. Yes, they use it to their advantage, and why not? Because that's what you've got. Mm-hmm. But paying attention to the whole situation, not just for the fishing side of things, for safety as well, watching that storm roll in and not getting off the water at the right time on some of these big dams down here is dead set dangerous. So, paying attention to everything. So great question, that one. Let's look for Aaron here. Is what advice would you give to somebody wanting to get into an ABT?
Do it. What have you got to lose? Like, you've got everything to gain and nothing to lose is what it is. So I had people do the same thing to me. Just go, look, just come. What's going to be the deficit or the bad thing that could happen if you come? And I was like, well, the only thing is I've spent probably a shitload more money than I ever would have on gear. Thanks, Brett. And so that's about it. It's just do it. Nothing to lose. It's so much fun, and the amount you learn and the amount of people you learn off is just unbelievable.
Yeah, that's 100% sure. I just want to grab something here. I'm back. I just had it sitting in the background, which is really cool. So, Aaron, one thing that you probably get caught up, and everyone does get caught up in co-boating, that they just go out and purchase all this gear and all this expense. Go out and do it first. Like, you don't need to take a lot of gear as a co-boater, and if you're traveling in a group, get into somebody's ear and have a talk. There'll be somebody from your area that travels and whatnot, but literally a spinnerbait box, carry a few football jigs, a few spinnerbaits, a few mumblers, a few beetle spins in something like that. And, your standard 3600 style tray, with a few TN60s, a few football jigs, a few jig heads, and that's about all you really, really need to start off. I started off with one bait caster and one spin rod, and that setup in a bag that I used to take. And that, start off and don't spend all this fortune, because with the shared weight scenario, if you don't have it, I'm pretty sure your boater will help you out with trying to shared weight. You're trying to win, so most of them don't have it. You don't have to take. I know cowies that go with the friggin' back of their four drives, chock a block with 100 rods and gear and everything else. I'm like, you got more gear than what I've got,
Yeah, well, I had a cowie, and I told him what we're going to do for the day. He's like, I didn't bring a jig rod. So I handed him the rod, the reel, the jig, the whole lot. And I was like, this is what you're going to be using for this part of the day. Yeah. So, and well, I mean, that's just what you do. You're out there as a team.
Yeah, for sure. So I suppose a simple answer to that question is just go and do it and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Kevin has got a proper question now. Who's the biggest influence on your fishing career so far?
I love how he's got to say it's a proper question.
Yeah.
To be honest, I couldn't nail it down to one person. My old man was never a fisherman. A couple of guys around here that I fished with, just getting into some local comps, they were probably some pretty big influences, because I realised how much I enjoyed the pressure of tournament fishing. Because you can go out on the best day every day and go and towel 100 fish, but when you don't have the choice of the perfect day and the perfect weather and the right tides or the right everything, and you've got to make it happen over an unknown circumstance, that's what I really enjoyed when I first did it. So my mate, Michael Capilli from up here, we started doing a couple of comps around here, and I guess he was one of the ones that got me in it at the start. We sort of both pushed each other to do it a little bit, which has been awesome. Like guys like yourself, Corey, and also the guys that I travel with for the ABTs as well. So Bretto and Berkey and Shano, Bridget, Giacomo's coming now too. So all these people have their own little part to play in how much we all enjoy what we're doing. I don't think I could say one person in particular.
That's awesome. And that's, obviously shows in your results. You've got a good crew around you. And that shows in your results that you've been able to keep a level head and just continue plugging away all season, haven't you?
Yeah.
All right. Alian wants to know, Have you had a chance to use any of the live sonar technology? If so, has it changed the way you fish, or have you been interested in thing that you've learnt anything from it? Have you been able to use it?
No, I haven't used it at all, really. I'm kind of in that sort of mindset at the moment. Like what I'm doing now, I'm still trying to get used to all the settings and everything on my own sounders as I've got them now. So I'll probably just wait this year out, just keep doing what I'm doing and learning more about what I've got now with the product I've got, rather than adding another piece to it just at this point in time.
To sort of go into that, you've, as I said, this is the first time, you've jumped in a massive deep end, and you're trying to swim your way to the shallow end. You've co-boated half a COVID season, then you're straight into boater. So you're worrying about wheel bearings, you're worrying about, oils, you're worrying about fuel, you're worrying about, everything else. And then you're fishing as well. And to throw it in, you're trying to learn technology, you're trying to learn everything else in the whole scheme of things. So, to throw in too much at the start, like we're saying, just do the basics and do the basics right.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I chucked a second sounder on the boat. That has changed my life. So now I don't have to walk back to where the steering wheel is to look at what's going on. I've got one at my feet, which makes a big difference. But yeah, I know a lot of guys that go out with the live scope, and like you said, Corey, they end up holding the rod and watching the screen. And then they're like, oh, that's right, I'm out here to fish. And they forget fish for a while. So
the longest I've gone is 3 hours without casting it.
Just staring at the screen.
Just staring at the screen?
Yeah.
Searching for fish. And I'm like, this is stupid. I hate this thing. 3 hours, and it goes really, really quickly. You're just sort of sitting there looking, scan that tree, go up, scan that tree, go, scan that tree, go and scan this. And I'm like, I haven't seen a fish, so I'm not going to cast. Doesn't mean the fish aren't there. But normally I would have just punched away at that and kept myself entertained. I'm like, where did that 3 hours go? So I've learnt my lesson on that one for sure. All right, let's go back. See what other questions are here. Daryl's been pumping in the shirt. These are just my Corey's Dam fishing shirts, Daryl. So we've got an Aboriginal artist that does up a few different styles of shirts. So I chose this one. Really, really happy with how they come up. They will go eventually for sale, but I've just sort of, I don't know, like everything else, COVID and everything else, I haven't had the money to purchase them and put them up on my website for sale. So I'll get around to that. Do you enjoy Daryl's also asking, do you enjoy the pressure of the competition fishing?
Yeah, that's actually what got me so hooked on it. I've always played sport my whole life and always been very competitive in my own mindset of how I do things. So the pressure it gives me to be able to perform and perform under that pressure, that's when I come out and I feel like I've had a really good day. When you've had your back up against the wall and you come back with your 5 fish, that's what makes it. Like when we're at Cania, I had a fair few things happen in my life in the weeks leading up to it that really sort of threw me. And it took me until probably the last half an hour to get that 5th fish in the boat. And everyone knew I had the 5th fish in the boat at that stage. And all the fish probably left then because I was jumping up and down in the boat as well. But yeah, it's the pressure of it when you pull through is one of the things that's most exhilarating about it when you can do that. And I love it. Yeah,
no, look, I have to say that, as far as jumping off the cliff, off the deep end into the fire pit, you've been able to control your emotions really, really well. You've had a bad run through family and everything else that's gone on. But one thing that I'm super proud of is the fact that you've been able to keep your head in the game for long periods of time, and that's what tournament fishing's about. Is just that they say, oh, you fish for a fish tournament and blah blah blah, but mentally it is a very, very demanding sport. But the pressure is just insane. It's as good as any football or basketball match that I've ever played in. When you're against the elements. You're not versing everyone else. You're actually versing the fish.
Yeah.
You know, when you're out there, I'm not concentrating on what Langford's done or what Bill's done or what anyone else has done. I'm solely focused on catching my bag. And when I've caught my bag, then I go and look for upgrades. I mean, that's what we all talk about. But for me, I always said I wish I found the sport earlier. You know, I wish I was 10 years younger, because it is quite a taxing on your body, especially this cod fishing when you go so long in between. But in the same sense, you know, for anyone that is out there that is coming out of playing sport for their whole life, it is something that is worth taking up, because it has filled a hole that I've had for a few years since I gave away playing footy. I gave away at 40, playing footy, and it was like, what am I going to do to get the competitive juices going? And I found tournament fishing, and I'm so happy I did.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, let's go through. We have got Harry's Wheel coming up we're going to do, and the winner, obviously, for Harry's Wheel has to be on, and they have to respond to that they want Harry to spin the wheel. So I will mention who it is in a minute, but what I will do is look for one question. Darren's got one here. What technique do you think you need more to improve on, or most of how apart from getting out and dropping a line do you study up on it?
I guess one of the techniques I would like to improve on more is not so much it'd be a spoon bite. That would be what it is. So I watch a lot of YouTube on it because of the location I am here. There's no spoon bite dams this side of our border. It's the first place you'd get that actually has any sort of spoon bite would be Hinds Dam up about the back of the Gold Coast. And that's been impossible to get to for a fair while now, obviously. But yeah, that would be the technique that I would need to improve on the most, just because I haven't had the opportunity to throw it and work it out. And on top of that, it's the thing I'm least confident in for that reason. So I definitely know that's a weakness I've got in my game. But I always have 2 or 3 tied on every time I go out for a pre-fish in a dam I know they're on, so I can get out there and throw it and just work it out and just get that confidence in it.
It's the easiest, hardest thing to fish.
I know. That's, like, you see people do it, it's just like, oh yeah, just roll it in, and you're like, no.
If you're out there for 7 hours counting to 20 every time you cast, it just does your head in. And I can remember fishing a couple of, I think they were bass-tastics with my son Connor, and we'd be in 100 feet of water, and I'd cast out and I'd count down at 20, I'd start rolling out, and Connor would cast at the same time. I'd turn around and go, what are you doing? And you go, nothing. I go, well, did you count? And he goes, oh, I forgot. And, you know, he's on the bottom at 100 feet of water, just winding it up off the bottom. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. You've got to keep counting every cast, let it drop to that 20-foot mark. So,
yeah.
All right, we're going to do the wheel, and hopefully they're on, because I'm just going to keep going through until I find somebody that's on. So it was a question earlier in the night about what advice would you give someone wanting to get into ABT. It was Aaron Larkin. So, Aaron, hopefully you're still on. And if you are still on, you need to comment in the comments for Harry to spin the wheel, so I know that you're still there. And you have 2 minutes. So we'll go to a question, and we'll get this next question off the bat, and we'll come in and see if Aaron's on. So, Bo wants to know what your favourite moment you've had with ABT so far.
If I go off this year, with what's been going on this year, it would be just the meeting the guys that I have on as co-boaters, and just it's kind of funny how quickly you can bond when you're in such a small area, and how quickly you get along. Like, the fishing's awesome. Like, we all love to fish already, we know that, but the guys I've met the co-boaters I've had, they've all been great guys, and we've all had a really good day out on the water. And I've just really enjoyed that sort of camaraderie that happens so quickly from the day before you shake their hand and go, "What was your name again?" "Oh yeah, hey John, how you going?" To the next day you get off the water and it's like you've met each other 20 years ago, and now you know half of each other's life. It's a really, really good part of the sport.
And it really, well, as you said, you're going to spend sometimes 7 hours with the person. You don't want to just be sitting there in silence for the whole 7 hours. I can't do it. I go fishing to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, ignore somebody, I'd probably go out there with the missus, So, all right. And Aaron's still on, so that's really cool. So what I'll do is I'll hide that. Bill, I'm going to give you a chance to go and have a leak while I bring Harry on. We'll do the wheel and bring you back on in a minute.
Sweet.
All right. That on to mute, and I've got to remember to unmute Bill later on. And let's find out if Harry's got a headache or he's ready to go. Are you there, Harry?
Hi.
Oh, look, we've got the rock.
Nah, this is Harry.
This is Harry. How you going, mate?
Good.
All right, so you're in homeschooling at the moment. Everyone sort of knows that, but you still got to go to bed on time. Can you get up at the wheel and get ready to spin? We've got Aaron on there waiting to see what he's going to win.
Yeah, okay. Expectation, reality.
You got your hoodie on. All right. This time, don't spin anything onto your head. Let's make sure we get a winner.
Okay. I think I should give it a spin. And we got Wilson.
All right. So that's a hat. Hat and stubby cooler.
Yes.
All right. Show us the hat. That's a Wilson.
There's no stubby cooler here, but here's the hat.
There you go. There's a Wilson hat. So, Aaron, you've got a Wilson hat and a stubby cooler. I will send that through to you. What you need to do, Aaron, is Corey's Dam Fishing. Send me a personal message with your address, and I will get that off. You can actually choose. I've got a Venom hat. Harry, grab the Venom hat, mate.
Oh, yeah.
So you got the choice of a Venom hat, which is a black and red one. Or the Wilson hat, which is the blue one, Aaron. So you get stubby coolers and you'll also get a hat. So to Corey's Dam Fishing, send me the message. All right, mate. Thank you very much.
The rock is out.
This will be the first time you haven't injured yourself in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
All right, very good, mate. You go to bed and I'll come and tuck you in a minute.
Okay, bye. I love you all.
Love you all. All right, see you then. All right, he's crazy. He gets hyped up on the stuff. So make sure you get your question. If you got any last questions you want answered, get them in so we can ask Bill before we log out for the night. We're just about done. Just got to work everything out, get everything up and running. I'll bring the man back on. All right, there we go. Harry hasn't actually injured himself tonight, so that's a good thing.
That's a win.
Did you actually look back through the questions? Have I missed any questions tonight so far? I don't think I have. I think everyone. Just going back through to make sure. Mo, Jake, we got to Daryl's. What's your biggest cod? Looks like we've sort of covered them all. Where's the stash gone? Daryl's got half a dozen in there.
I think it's Barry, is it?
What was the question?
Barry's, how do you research new waters?
Right out. There it is.
YouTube. Plain and simple, that's the main part, especially if you can't get there. But YouTube's a huge one. And just talking to blokes. Like, I know I've spoken to Corey plenty of times about places we're going to and hit him up a few bits and pieces like that. And it all comes around. People hit you up about your local waterways too. You can get all the information you want off people, but until you get out of the water and feel it out yourself as well, that's sort of where you get most of the learning done. It's time on the water. Like, you look at guys like Langers and how consistent he is, time on the water. So, yeah.
I say to Langers all the time, I say you're cheating. And it's not, I'm joking with that whole scenario because, good luck to him if you go out and set your life up around fishing. That's what it is. Dean Sylvester did the same thing with the Bass Nation. Early days, he wasn't chartering, but he was pre-fishing for a week at a time. 2 weeks before the comp, he was at every dam. It was just constant time on the water. So yes, time on the water does help. When you're getting paid to do it, it makes it so much like cheating as far as I'm concerned. But I do also look way back on your Google searches. So don't just go first page Google search. If you're looking for stuff, a lot of the old sweetwater fishing forums, especially around that southeast Queensland corner, you can find a lot of old stuff embedded in old articles on the net. So, don't forget that. Scotty Gully got on late by the looks of it. Nick wants to know where your spots are for the Richmond River for the grand final.
In the water. And
we'll answer this one as the last one for the night, straight up, because Allion has actually entered as into the junior program, and he's asked a legitimate question, which we'll finish it off on tonight's show with. What's the hardest part of your journey, basically so far in the Alloycraft Ambassador program?
The hardest part was in the top 10 when we started getting all the challenges, because you never knew what they were going to be. You had a set amount of time to do them in, and the biggest thing is not working off what other people have done. The whole idea is to make your own path, to blaze your own way in how you're doing it. So to be able to set yourself apart and make it yours, make it who you are and show who you are. It's not replicating what other people have done that you think that, Brad and Corey are looking for in regards to their ambassadors. So trying to make sure that I put me into everything that was done so they could see who I was and what they were going to get if I was the person that was successful was the biggest challenge, because you always doubt yourself going, oh, is this going to be good enough? I mean, John did a great job. Bob did a great job. Or maybe I should do something like what they did. But then I took a step back and I went, no, that wouldn't be putting me into the situation. That'd be trying to replicate what other people have done. So my biggest advice would be make sure everything you do is showing who you are as a person, as an angler, as a family member, as a friend, whoever you are, and whatever you do, make sure that comes through in everything you're doing, and just be genuine with it. Because at the end of the day, I've had some pretty full-on conversations with Corey when I've been in places and emotional and all these other sorts of things that I didn't think I would have. But it was being real with the situation that was happening and how it was unfolding for me that helped me realize where I wanted to be and how I could get there.
Yep, 100%. And not a true word has been spoken. You have been the same person since you started, since the first phone call I had with you to what you are now. There has been no bullshit in the trip through. You've not got I haven't had to pull you back a couple of pegs and say, hey, Bill, you're getting in front of yourself here a little bit. You've been the same person all the way through. When you've struggled, you've admitted it. When you've done well, you've accepted it, and you've just kept your head screwed on straight all the way through. It's been wonderful to watch your journey. I can't wait to see what happens when COVID's finally finished and you get out there for a full season. I think you're going to be one to watch out for. I'm really looking forward to seeing your growth from here. It's been a bit hard, but I'm really looking forward to seeing where Bill Latimer's fishing experience goes from here, because it's great, because as you said, you've been yourself. And yourself was good enough, and yourself is good enough, and just continue with it because it's working for you. All right. I think that's going to be enough. There's questions and everything going out, but, we're at the hour mark. That's been enough. Stay on the air, Bill. I'll over chat you off the air. But for everyone else, look, it's getting harder and harder to get the show together each week because I'm getting more and more depressed sitting in lockdown. I'm probably due to have a few weeks away on holidays somewhere. So if the borders do open, I might go and do the ABT Barra Cons or something just to get out of, the whole situation. But we'll keep plugging along. We've got some ambassador stuff to do next week. I don't know who the guest is because I haven't organised it. It's a good old week to do that. So we'll talk to you all next week. Thanks for watching.